Hi there. Welcome back to my Obsidian Mirror podcast and this Obsidian Mirror scrying session for the full moon in Capricorn. It's really delightful and feels so good in my body and in my heart to be, and in my soul to be doing these sessions again. I felt it was important to take some time off. I just didn't feel in the right kind of energy or lived experience to be doing these. And I personally believe that the Obsidian Mirror is a beautiful tool and relationship that needs to be respected in that way, and that if things don't feel right, I'm to pay attention to that. And that's how it felt. So this is the first time that I've felt good about scrying into it again. And I love it like a friend, if that makes any sense. I'm an animist, and I love my mirror. It's a healer and a teacher. And I just feel like it deserves that kind of respect, that if I don't feel that things are right situationally or in my own energy to approach it, that I shouldn't do that. So this is the first time that I've kind of felt again like I'm ready to resume these. And what I might do is not try to do a full gaze every single lunar phase, but just do a full gaze during the new and full moon cycles. And then on the quarter moons, I might do just a follow through tarot card pull, a little bit of a slight adjustment. We'll see. I learned, that I probably should follow my energy where it's taking me and not try to impose some sort of discipline on it. Although I think the discipline is important to keep it going. And what a beautiful gaze I just had. And I really want to emphasize that these are they're not very long. A lot can come through an obsidian mirror, especially if you work with a lot of respect. And I offered it smoke and my love and gratitude for waiting and for, to kind of rejoin it again, and kind of a mutual work that we do together by me gazing in and showing it respect. And so, an obsidian mirror is considered a healer, and I won't necessarily go too much further into it, but I recommend listening to some of the other podcasts and looking up how obsidian mirrors and mirror scrying has been used in the ancient world up until the present day. It's really wonderful information, and I'm very honored to have this obsidian mirror and to get to work with it. So anyways, I'll just go ahead and get into the imagery. And if you're new here, I try to refrain from doing a lot of interpreting and let you do your own interpretation based on the archetypes that come through. This reading or session or gaze really had a lot of beautiful imagery come through. The serpent and often the cobra is a symbol that has been really resonant for me in my life. And today it really came through the serpent and the primordial serpent, which most ancient cultures have a primordial serpent as part of their mythology. Although I don't know if most might be a little bit of a risky word to say, but I'd say it's a unifying concept or unifying theme, especially in creation myth. And I just really feel kind of blown away by some of the beautiful images I saw today. So as I opened the mirror, the first thing that came through was an iguana, which was really beautiful. And I love iguanas. I've never had one as a pet, but I've been fortunate enough to travel where you can see many iguanas around. And I'm sure have their own powerful symbolism. But one thing I've always appreciated about them is their gaze. They have a very steady, peaceful, calm, gazing presence that I have always found them to have kind of a nice spirit about them. I really appreciate, I don't know how to capture really what it feels like to me in words, but their energy has always felt kind of wise and friendly and not without humor in a way. So anyways, I was kind of pleased to see an iguana, and he was kind of showing up, leaning down towards where the images of messages were coming through as if he was looking on. Then that kind of morphed or shifted into a jaguar over someone's shoulder. And a jaguar is a really powerful symbol in the Americas. And I actually recently received some of my grandmother's jewelry, and from my uncle's estate, my aunt and uncle's estate, I guess. And it's an articulated pendant of a jaguar with green eyes. It's really beautiful. I guess I had never really seen one, but they were kind of on trend in the 80s, but they're designed that you can pin them over your shoulder, which I think is really interesting. I've been trying to figure out how I might wear it because it's a really gorgeous pendant or brooch. And this was sort of what that jaguar looked like. It looked like it was also walking over a mound, or like the iguana was before it shifted into the jaguar. So it was walking down towards us, maybe like from the heavens or from celestial bodies, into the place where the mirror was showing me the images. The next thing I saw were some white faces of angelic beings like cherubim. I think they're also called buti, but they look like children or babies in sort of the romantic version of them. And, in the art world, they are huge symbols used in all kinds of art historical paintings and within architecture, and they were kind of also glimpsing down. They had white shining faces, white light, not white skin. They were light. They weren't of form. They weren't in a 3D. They were etheric, and they were kind of gazing down as well from where the iguana and jaguar came to look on this message. Then it kind of showed one of the cherubim straining and pushing, and as I was watching, why is that happening? It was showing me that it was shedding skin. So it was kind of going back and forth between an angelic being and a serpent that's going through a transmutation, shedding its skin. And it was moving towards us as where the images of the gaze were occurring in the mirror, which was on our plane, on the earth plane. So I guess this cherubim that was going through a skin shedding, or I guess what I really should call it is a seraphim, and I'll talk about that in a minute because I didn't know this. I had to look up some information about some of these serpent spirits I was seeing because I don't know them personally. I just know of them and had seen them before. Some I do. I have some relationships with my own kind of primordial serpents just through my own spiritual practices, but there were some that showed up as historic reference that I don't know them personally or have a relationship. So to see this seraphim, angelic kind of etheric being pushing through its skin, shedding its skin, was a very serpentine primordial energy coming down into the earth plane towards us. Then that moved into standing on the ground, or just hovering just above the earth plane ground. And it was again a seraphim, like an angel. I kept saying an angelic being until I looked some of this information up after the scrying session and learned that a seraphim, angels in the Abrahamic tradition, have a relationship to the Urias serpent, which was an Egyptian serpent. When you look at an Egyptian crown, you'll often see a cobra coming out of where the third eye would be of the crown. And so that is called a Urias, Ureas serpent. It's also kind of considered a creation serpent that's later got relationships to the seraphim angelic bodies. So the seraphim were standing, just hovering above the earth plane. It was one figure, but it had multiple faces. And it's sort of like the concept of angels and how they were described in the Bible versus how they're painted in human art, right? And there was a robed figure, sort of praying. It wasn't showing the seraphim at first. It was showing a robed figure, like maybe at a church or a temple wall. The term wailing wall came through, but it was also like a monk, like a supplicant person who was coming to pray. And what ended up happening was this seraphim angelic type white light being, and the robed figure that represented a human was a black figure. It was a black cloak, and it started to be like a mutual they became locked in a dance or locked in an embrace. This person who was in a supplicant form of prayer to either this temple wall or this wailing wall. Then the Seraphim were coming in and they were locked in a dance, honestly. It was beautiful and intense looking. And it also kind of then showed me a quick image of like a white and a black swan in a mating dance. So a really beautiful water-based kind of co-creative image. It was just really meaningful and beautiful to see. And then that kind of started to be shown as occurring in a doorway, like a sacred doorway or a sacred transmutation, I guess. Or like if you think of, there's a lot of art history around the original designs of cathedrals and in Abrahamic tradition and places of Christian worship. And it had something to do with that. This light casting through the doorway from inside a place of worship onto this person who was in a supplicant type prayer with and uniting to some degree with this seraphim being. Then that kind of drifted away or shimmered away, I guess. And then it showed me a Hindu god that I knew and I had seen before, but I didn't know the story of this god. But it was a god or a deity that has the body of a snake. And so I wanted to look that up because I was curious what the symbolism of that deity is. And that deity's name is Shesh Naga, which is a demigod. It's also considered a creation god in the Hindu tradition. It can represent creation, protection, but also devastation. And it's like a primordial snake or a primordial serpent. And what's so interesting too and part of its story is that when gods and demons came together to stir the milky primordial seas, there was so much power and poison in those waters that the Shesha absorbed and drank all of the poison so that it wouldn't be so dangerous and volatile in terms of the milkiness of the primordial waters. And so I thought that was really amazing. And I have a card in my own deck that calls Harness the Power of Poison to Heal. And that's what it makes me think of when you think of the poison of a cobra being medicinal as well as poison, right? And there's a whole, plant kingdom around that kind of poison healing as well. So that also then led me to kind of look at, there's a lake in Kashmir named after this demigod, Shesha. It's called Lake Shesha. And it's believed that this is where the Shesh Naga resides, is in this lake in Kashmir. And beyond the lake is a cave called Amaranth Cave, which is also a pilgrimage site. It's way up high in the Himalayas, and there's a very brief window of time every year where pilgrims are allowed to make their way to the cave and the lake. And inside this cave is a huge natural lingam. A lingam is a phallic symbol, a spiritual phallic symbol, right, with sacred meaning. And this is a natural one. It's formed by a stalagmite of ice and dripping water in this cave. And I really recommend looking it up. It's a very powerful image. And the lingam has been coming through a lot of my meditations lately. So I think that's really beautiful. It's very divine masculine energy merging with the feminine energy of the lake and the feminine pool. Just really amazing imagery that I learned about along with you. Maybe you already know these beings, or maybe this is new to you also, but I felt very humbled and awe-inspired at the beauty, and it made me think I would love to go and see that lake someday. And interestingly, the lakes and the cenotes in Mexico are also thought to be guarded by serpent deities or demigod type spirits, like the feathered serpent. So this is kind of ancient oral tradition that goes way back, probably beyond our understanding of human migration to some degree. Or maybe not. Maybe that's very well tracked. I don't know. That's not my world of study necessarily. then it kind of went back up into the heavens area and showed just a blue Hamza or evil eye, Turkish eye image looking down, which kind of, even though I try to refrain from interpreting what I see, it was meant for me to say that this was to know that we're protected. This is potent energy coming through. And if we're talking about creation and primordial spirits, this could be something that seems a little frightening if they're reaching down to us, but it was showing that it was done with love and protection and wisdom. So then it kind of showed beyond the Shesh spirit or deity, it showed me an Egyptian crown, like the kind that Ramses wore, if you can imagine, like King Tut's tomb. Those crowns that are like a cobra, you know, they're like a cobra's flared energy behind it, in recognition of the queens and kings of Egypt and the royal lineages, right, that wore those crowns. And there's often a cobra on the third eye part of that crown. And that is the Uraeus serpent, and also can represent the goddess Wadjet in Egypt, one of the oldest deities in the Egyptian pantheon. And it's thought that there's some relationship between the Uraeus serpent and Wadjet and what became known as the Seraphim angels. So I always love when there's a lot of crossover of those primordial creation images, and I really feel humbled and honored that the serpent came through here. So that's when I felt like I had been flooded with enough beautiful images that I wanted to go ahead and close the mirror at that point. And now I'm just going to wrap it up with some card pulls here. To tie together anything else that might want to come through via tarot. And I really thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Please share with me in the comments if any of this has personal relevance for you or meaning. Or also if it's just that you appreciate these kinds of archetypes and themes just like I do. I really find them beautiful and fascinating and humbling. And I'm very grateful to these creation beings for being here. These primordial beings. To me, it means there's something significant about this full moon in Capricorn that has to do with that, with creation, or the primordial seas, the milky oceans, the poisons, the creation of our world and our planet, which is its own, you know, consciousness, right? And the closer you are to working with that consciousness, I feel the healthier, because we are of the planet, right? But that's, again, my little interpretation. I'll try to avoid doing that too much. So any more messages here from tarot? Queen of Cups, which to me is that feminine pool of water, and this image shows a gorgeous orca whale plunging into the depths of the sea, surrounded by the chalice, the crab, all the fishes, all the creatures of the waters, including this wise and beautiful orca that is coming through in a feminine energy. So that feels very beautiful. To the creation imagery that came through, especially with the primordial waters. What else? I'm going to pull two more cards here. The Eight of Cups. So that is speaking to me about the destruction aspect of the Shesha as well as the protection. It's kind of both. It's the duality of that, because the Ace of Cups represents a walking away, an ending of the old, and it's again the cups and water elements. So it's allowing your reality to be washed in the water element, and the old you ended, right? Or the old, not ended, but transmuted, right? Shedding of the skin like came through prayer and supplication and co-creation. That was a big theme. Like, this is something that deities, if we show them the respect and the love, they want to co-create our reality with us and with the planet. It was a kind of a strong and loving feeling that came through that. Very humbling, though. You know, I think to see a seraphim would be terrifying, right? So I'm not trying to say that, you know, I mean, I think that we get shown things like that in ways that we can understand them, maybe. I don't know. And the 8 of Wands. So 2 8s there, 8, which is a sacred, you know, that's an infinite number, an infinity, representing infinity and the endless, endlessness, right? Even when you transmute and shed a skin, you become something else. When you leave this life and enter the cosmos, you become something else. So you don't cease to exist. The energy never goes away. It went from this physical grounding in the water element into the primordial seas and the energy of transmutation here. And this 8 of Wands card shows a little bit of that echo of serpent behind the owl that's flying in the sky. The serpent in the sky is coming down to the earth plane, and the fire of the wands coming down like lightning bolts. Really beautiful. And there's that image of a lightning bolt striking the water and creating life, right? The fire and water elements coming together. The stirring of the milky primordial oceans. So just super stunning imagery. So I hope that these themes come through and provide you some sort of a cleansing or appreciated energy, like what I feel. I feel very appreciative for those images showing up, and so happy and grounded in my heart to have done this gaze again. I really love doing this work. So I thank you, and I'll see you in the next gaze, and take good care of yourself during this full moon transition.